we got a question submitted to us a couple of weeks ago that we want to address today. So what we're going to do is this is actually kind of like a follow-up to our sacrifice episode. We've had a lot of DMs about that episode and how reframing the word sacrifice and what sacrifice means and that it's not a bad thing. We've had so many conversations about that. And when this question came through, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to do a follow-up sacrifice episode. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to read her submission and then we're going to kind of get into answering her question and what this would mean for other people who might be in a similar situation. So she said, the way that I was raised up until the last 6 months to a year of adulthood, she said she's 32 years old, I've always thought that sacrificing something that was wanted or needed was a scarcity mindset. Basically, if I want this, I deserve to get it. But this episode, the sacrifice episode, really confirmed what I've been feeling, which it's okay to choose to sacrifice certain things for a reason, for a set period of time, or for a reason that might align more with our lifestyle or this season of life. Can we get an amen? Yes, that's exactly what we wanted you to hear from that episode. But her question is, about a year ago, I bought a new car that was way too expensive for what we should be spending monthly payment-wise. Me and my husband are both self-employed. We have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and we bought a house in 2020 that is within our means. Up until 3 to 4 years ago, we made decent money, but didn't spend a ton of money. Fast forward to the last 3 years or so, we've made a lot more, but our spending has matched that, so we don't have much to show for it in the way of saving or being smart with it. I'm going to put air quotes for being smart with it because that feels like a lot of shame and guilt built into that, and we don't want you to feel that way. But the car is really sickening to me. I cannot sell it right now or so soon without owing money on it, and I would love some advice. So what we want to do today is to present this woman with, we don't know who you are. We hope you're listening. I feel like a radio show. That was like, right?
Yes.
But we want to present you with some options because it sounds like you don't think you have any options. And when we were kind of tossing this around, you actually have a lot of options available to you. Some of them you may not like. Some of them you may not choose. Some of them may not be anything in the realm of possibility for you right now. But we want you to know that there are choices.
Yeah. I think that the first part of what she shared about this idea that sacrificing anything is sort of this lack mentality, that comes a lot with sort of this like toxic narrative around dreaming big and only focusing on positive, and you can have anything you set your mind to. And like, yes, and this is what we talk about all the time. Yes, and you still are in the reality of today. So yes, you can dream big and think bigger, which will change your actions, which will change your outcomes. And you still have to take care of what you have today. You still have to make decisions that are going to serve you today and set you up for tomorrow. But we get so focused and we preach so much about focusing just on tomorrow that we kind of go, well, when I make more money, then.
Yep.
And that gets you back into that kind of spiral, or that can put you in a dangerous place financially.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to address that sacrifice is not a negative thing. Because the definition of sacrifice, did you already share the definition of sacrifice, Becca?
No.
Tell our audience again. We've said it so many times, but I know it's just like we have to drive this home. How do you define it?
So if I were telling my kids what the word sacrifice means, I would tell them to give up something that you used to want for something that you now want more, right? So to put something, you could even consider it like putting something on the back burner for now, like she said, for this season of life, for a certain period of time. It doesn't mean you have to give up. It doesn't mean you have to live poor. It doesn't mean that there's anything negative about it. Society would tell you that sacrifice means, oh, you're in scarcity mindset. You're not going to make a lot of money. And if you do, you're going to get rid of it very quickly. And that's just not true.
Yeah, I love that. I love that explanation. And that's what we mean when we're saying like shift the way you think about sacrifice. Because if you think of sacrifice as a lack, you think of it as, oh, I have to suffer until I get to this other place, then you're kind of, I'm going to just say like stuck in a pity party mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But if you shift the definition of sacrifice to what it really is, which is like you said, just simply shifting priorities. You're going to put this thing that you used to want aside for now, and you're going, so let's give a concrete example of that. And I love using the example of eating out because everybody understands and relates to that. Right now, maybe I want an extra $200 a month in my budget. So at the end of the year, I have $2,400 to put towards something exciting, or an investment in my business, right? And so I spend $500 a month eating out. Well, am I willing to spend $300 a month eating out instead of 500, so that I can use that margin of $200 a month to put into that savings account so that I can get this other thing that I want more? So I'm sacrificing eating out a little bit, not even half, but just sacrificing a little bit of that budget in order to get something else that I want more. That's positive. That's exciting. That's intentional. That's you being in charge and in control. It's nothing to do with being negative, having a limited mindset, having a lack mindset. And you can sacrifice something and set a goal to make more money at the same time, but you're still really living in the intentionality of today. Like today, I'm going to reallocate this $500 to both things that I want and focus on making that up so that I can rebuild the $500 eating out budget that I like.
Well, you're saying you're sacrificing $200 of eating out, but what I heard was you got to eat out and you got to have that $2,400 at the end of the year. So we have a client just this past Wednesday who said she came to the call and was like, I want to go to conference in February. I just got back. It's incredible. Like I can't even explain how great it was for my business and my mindset. I want to go back in February, but it's going to cost me probably $2,000 in plane tickets. And that's a lot of money. Yes, it is for a flipping plane ticket. Like, come on. But what we said was that's 12 months away. Like you have an entire year to save for that. And what she wanted to do was sacrifice a lot of her time to get a cheaper plane ticket, right? So she was like, I could drive 2 hours to a different city, fly to, I think she said like somewhere in Florida. But then I'd have to rent a car and drive a couple hours to the thing. And we were like, do you want to give up money for a rental car? And do you want to give up 4 hours of your time driving? Because on the way back, you're going to have to give up another 4 hours. So that's like an entire day that you're giving up to save how much money? And is it worth it to you? And we weren't telling her not to do it, but it's just like, if you can look at these things from all different angles, then you can see I actually don't want to drive 4 hours both ways or one way, 8 hours both ways. I really just want to pay $2,000 for a straight flight ticket, be there and be excited and not stressed. Well, great. Now we have a year to save $2,000 to pay for that.
Yeah. And time is money. So like that extra day of travel could be a day of you working in your business, booking clients, so.
Or visiting with friends, like before the conference starts,
Yeah. So let's share, we came up with a whole list of options for this person with this car. Because like we said, it sounds like she's feeling really stuck and like, okay, it is what it is. I guess I just have to suffer through this season. But there's actually a lot of options available. And this isn't just in relation to a car. So whatever, thing that you feel stuck in right now, like let us walk you through how we like to poke holes in ideas and concepts and limiting beliefs with each other. Becca and I do this all the time. And we get really creative when we start poking holes and we start thinking differently. So I think the first thing that we want to say is like, let's pretend that this car is a $50,000 car. They have a $50,000 loan remaining. And so, selling it right now, maybe it's not worth as much as you owe on it. So you'd have some debt if you were to sell it. But a really interesting concept that I heard this year was, you have $50,000 of debt and maybe you wouldn't be able to get as much for that car as you owe on it. So let's say you sold it and you could only get $40,000. Right now you're in $50,000 of debt with the car. Cars are bad debts.
And it's stressing you. We can tell it's stressing you.
Yes. Especially if you're a business owner, any stress is taking you out of your business. It's taking you out of creativity. It's taking you out of abundance and feeling good. And, having energy to put towards the things you're excited about. It's lowering your, I'm going to sound really woo, but it's like lowering.
Don't say it.
It is. It's like making you stay really stuck and swirly. and in overwhelm, and then little things become big thing, right? Like we all can relate. The laundry suddenly is like really triggering, and like all the little things at home, like we can all relate to those things. So anything that's really weighing on you, especially anything financial like this, like a car is a big thing. So I can understand that that would feel really heavy. So right now you've got $50,000 of debt. Let's say you sold it for 40. Well, you could have $10,000 of debt instead of 50. And maybe you went out and bought a $25,000 car instead of the $50,000, SUV, and it still had the same amount of seats. And so now you have 35K in debt instead of 50. So like there are options available to you. Sometimes that means going and talking to the bank, your lender, seeing what other choices there are. I know, Becca, you were talking about an option being refinancing.
Yeah, refinancing gets a bad rap. And I don't recommend it like all the time. And I don't recommend it for everything that you have, right? But if you're in a situation where you're so stressed that you can't make enough money for your family, then refinancing might be an option. We did that with our car about 3 years ago. I just didn't want to pay the payment as high anymore. And I knew that we could get a lower interest rate. And I was like, I'm just going to refinance and then we can pay it off. If we take the amount of money we were paying on it and add it to now the refinanced payment, then we're going to pay it off a lot faster. Like you just have a lot more options, and when you ease your stress, you can see there are so many options available to you. The other thing is, I don't even like to say this, but like you could work extra time. Like if you're in a full time job, can you work some extra hours for overtime, or just extra hours? Maybe they're not overtime. If you work for yourself, if you worked an extra hour a week or 2 hours a week, is that more sales for you? Is that more income for you to make up the money that you feel like you don't want to spend on the car, or you can't spend on the car? And the other thing is, we're going to do a shameless plug. You could take our Find 5,000 challenge. And the reason that we say that you could take this is the last 3 people who have taken it have found, I think Meredith said yesterday, like $4,300 she found in 10 minutes that she was mindlessly spending. So now she has that back in her budget. Our other client, Audra, found $6,000 in 30 minutes. So there could be some places in your budget where you are overspending or you're mindlessly spending and you don't even know that money's going away, that you could be paying for this car with, and it could cause you a lot less stress, right?
Yeah. And I think that example of our clients using that challenge, we were just saying before we started recording this that we want to start promoting that to our clients quarterly, like just to get them. I use the term nose blind. Like you guys know that, when you're in your own home, you don't smell the smells of your own home. You get used to your wet smelling dog in your own home. You just don't notice it. And, this is a client who's on her money. She's on her budget. She's paying attention. But even when you're tracking consistently and paying attention, you can get a little, I'm going to call it nose blind to your own habits and your own numbers, because you can get sort of out of analysis and just sort of into the routine of tracking. And so getting them to ask themselves the same questions a different way. You guys hear me say that all the time. Looking at your budget through the lens of this Find 5K challenge that took her 10 minutes, she was like, holy man, there's a lot out of alignment here, because I'm looking at it through a new lens. They got me to think differently and kind of get out of my normal routine. And that was so, I like literally felt like crying when she mentioned that. We shared it on our stories earlier this week, because it was just so validating that there's so much mindless spending that happens that we all do, that we have so much control over, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time or energy to find it, to give ourselves some more margin and choices within our budget, so that we can get the things that we want. We can invest in the things that we want to invest in our businesses or for our families. There's so many choices that we have. And it just takes getting really in rooms with people that think it differently than you, that have different experiences than you, that can share these perspective shifts, that can be literally just a different thought that can change the outcome that you have. So we're definitely going to link that below this episode, that you can grab a copy of the Find 5K challenge. It's free. And I think what we really want for our listeners is for you to choose your sacrifice. So like, what is it that's important to you right now? And what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get there? And you have so many choices available to you. So you get to be in the driver's seat of that sacrifice. And we are taking back ownership of the word sacrifice and making it a really good, sexy, juicy thing that you get to do.
If whoever submitted this question, if you're listening, we would love for you, if you want to stay anonymous, that's totally fine. You can resubmit the form and tell us what you thought about this episode if you have follow up questions. If you want to go to our DMs and have a conversation with us, we would love that also. And for anyone who's listening that this struck a chord with, come to our DMs and chat with us. We love to hear what you like to hear on the podcast. We love to hear what strikes a chord with you. We want to know, this podcast is for you. It's for you, and we want it to make sure that you are always getting what you need for it from it so that you can go kill your financial dreams. Like, let's go get them.
We'll see you in the next episode.